We pretty much crossed the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season, and there's still stuff to watch out in the Atlantic, especially near the southeastern Bahamas. I have a brief weather update on this episode of The Weather Hit. There are a few areas in the Atlantic basin the National Hurricane Center is watching as of September 11th, but one is closer to the U.S. mainland. The National Hurricane Center is watching an area of a surface trough near the eastern Cuba through southeastern Bahamas. The area of showers and storms is forecast to become more favorable for development over the next few days. In fact, the National Hurricane Center is giving it a 60% odds of development over the next 5 days. It could eventually become a tropical depression over southeast Florida or the Bahamas as we get to the Friday time frame. And there is the threat for gusty winds and maybe some heavy rain, especially as it moves off towards more of a northwesterly fashion. So here's what we have right now. We have an upper level low moving through the southeast, specifically kind of close to the Big Bend coastline. Can kind of be picked out on the water vapor loop that you see there. Now, that is bringing some shear in the vicinity. You can kind of pick it out north of that surface trough. Also, you see the thunderstorms blowing off near parts of the Florida Peninsula and northern Florida. Meanwhile, especially to the north of this little upper level low I just mentioned, especially well north of the surface trough, there is deep high pressure in place right now, which is helping to keep much of the southeast baking. But guidance is hinting at this little upper level low I talked about near the Big Bend coastline, moving off more in a westerly fashion over the next few days. Possibly giving a little bit more breathing room for development, eliminating some of that shear. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But both guidance, the GFS and the Euro, are in some agreement of some maybe slow developing, with the Euro being just a tad more aggressive. But the operational runs of these models have it taking off in different directions. But there's agreement, though, that there'll be more rainfall across the southeastern United States, especially towards Florida and back towards Alabama and the Mississippi. The Weather Prediction Center has about the potential for 1 to 3 inches of rain as we get into the middle part of the weekend, even through the early part of next week. So heavy rainfall is a potential in some locations, especially get closer toward the coastline and back off to the west. So to recap, the Hurricane Center is watching a surface trough of low pressure back towards Cuba and the Bahamas, expected to go off towards the northwest over time, as some potential, a moderate chance of some development, at least to a tropical depression, as we get into late part of the week, into early next week, as it moves off into the Gulf of Mexico. So keep checking back over time, but right now, we're confident at least it's going to be a rainmaker for parts of the Gulf Coast. That's all I have for this episode. Be sure to follow me on my social media accounts. Also hit the subscribe button on the bottom there, and be sure to like it if you liked it, dislike it if you thought this was completely terrible, and we'll see you guys again next time. Thanks for watching.